Hello everyone and welcome to Pocket Dimensional Clash 2, a game made by the same person who brought you Avengers United Battle Force. We're going to choose Captain Commando to start with because they remembered Captain Commando exists, so we have to pick him. This is the only other beat 'em up that Douglas seems to have made, so I decided I'd give this one a try as well if we're doing Avengers. The controls are very similar to Avengers United Battle Force. I know that sounds weird because this is a traditional beat 'em up, so you may figure that's a given, but you'll see what I mean by that very shortly. The most important thing to note right out of the gate is that our regular combo has very limited range because we have very stubby arms, but our dashing attack has quite the range on it. We stick our leg out really far. And because we slide slightly when we use our dashing attack, we want to press the button just slightly before we reach the enemy. It's certainly one of the more satisfying dashing attacks that I've seen in a beat 'em up, and it feels really good. So far we've only had two enemy types, the normal dude and the dude with fancy hair, but here's a new one. She's the only enemy type that will actively charge at us, but a single combo is enough to take her out. If we want to use our dashing attack on her, we have to press the button way earlier because she is actively moving toward us at a high speed. So when I said this game controls very similar to Avengers, I meant the dashing attack works very similarly in that we can juggle enemies with it. We simply use the dashing attack once, double tap again, and then use it as many times as we want until the enemy's off screen. It's a little bit harder to input than you might think. The important thing to remember is that you have more time to juggle than you think you do, and then it should be a lot easier to pull off. This is by far the easiest way to deal with enemies, and it feels pretty satisfying. You may have noticed the guys with fancier hair have jump attacks. We can easily counter the jump attacks with our dashing strike though, as I'm sure you've seen multiple times at this point, so the only real threat so far is the girl enemy type, who charges directly at us. I mean, I know this may look kind of bad, but juggling enemies with the dashing attack is actually supremely satisfying. The enemies don't seem to fly nearly as far as the enemies in as the enemies in Avengers, so that makes juggling them way easier. You may have noticed that we have an ultimate attack at our disposal where we electrify the ground. We can only use that when our power meter below our health is full. We can use that move whenever we like though, the one where we catch enemies on fire. It's really not worth it in most circumstances, but you can work it into a normal combo, and that's when I think it's most useful. This game's graphical style and sound effects immensely remind me of Mighty Final Fight. I would say Mighty Final Fight is a better game, but this is only a demo, and it hasn't been updated since December in 2016 because he's been focusing on Avengers, I assume. So I think it's a little too early to judge the game, because I'm sure there were many more changes he planned to make. I don't know if the game is abandoned or anything, but I'm sure if he shows up that he will correct me in the comments. That jumping enemy just jumped right into that pit. I do really love the slide on the dashing attack. It adds an extra element of timing, especially if the enemies are significantly far away from you. I'm trying to think of a situation where the dashing attack isn't useful, but as long as you time it properly, it's pretty much useful for everything. And it's not as though the game loses its challenge because of this mechanic either. As you can see, the enemies are having no trouble kicking my ass when they gang up on me. So here's an ally similar to Avengers. I don't know who this fellow is over there on the right, but he will shoot a projectile at the enemies and jump kick at them. He's reasonably effective at what he does, especially with his projectiles. Honestly, if he were a real person, he would probably just spam the projectiles all the time, because that seems like the best way to go about things. There's an enemy stuck on the left of the screen that we can't see, but fortunately our buddy's taking care of him. We don't have a projectile, so that's ideal. So you may have seen a few times that there are sandbags that sometimes turn into enemies, and they have a sliding kick of their own. More like a spinning kick, I suppose. It makes them slightly more formidable than the other enemy types, and they do take quite a few hits. They're especially dangerous because they can chain their spinning kicks together without needing to pause first. Again though, just timing the dashing attack properly, as in very early, will deal with the problem. So here is Evil Ryu, and he's a fun boss battle. The most dangerous thing about him is his Hadouken. He will actually bait you and he will actually bait you and then use the Hadouken on you, which is really humorous, and I keep falling for it. But there is an easier way to fight him besides charging at him, and that's to come at him from above or below and use a grapple. Now Ryu himself is pretty fast, so coming at him from above or below may not always work, especially since we don't have a lot of vertical movement here. But that's the strategy I found to deal the most damage to him the easiest. Yeah, see, he'll seem to charge at us, but then stop dead and shoot a Hadouken instead. That always gets me. It is very possible to use the dashing attack on him as well, but to make sure it connects without him countering, I recommend moving diagonally first. He seems to have a much harder time reacting when you do that. So that was the demo for Pocket Dimensional Clash 2. As I said, it is only a demo, but I really like what he has here, and as with Avengers, the presentation is outstanding. This stage just seems to be something of a test area. It does have enemies and a boss, but nothing we haven't seen already except for that spike ball. So I'm not going to talk over this one. Enjoy the rest of the video, and thank you for watching. Please remember to support the guy if you like what he's done. Just go play his games and give him feedback. They are free, so unless you don't like beat 'em ups, then you should go give those a try.